The desert sun beat down mercilessly on Jake's trailer as he sat in his folding chair, nursing a cold beer and contemplating the profound emptiness of his weekend. He'd driven 3 hours into the Nevada wilderness to escape the noise of the city, seeking nothing more than silence and solitude. What he got instead was about to change his life forever. A soft whimpering sound caught his attention, barely audible over the gentle desert wind. Jake set down his beer and stood, scanning the scrubland around his campsite. There, near a cluster of Joshua trees about 20 yards away, something moved. Something small. Something blue. What the hell? Jake muttered, approaching cautiously. As he drew closer, his breath caught in his throat. Huddled against a rock was a creature unlike anything he'd ever seen. It stood perhaps 2 feet tall, with luminescent blue skin marked by darker striped patterns. Large, amber-colored eyes stared up at him with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. The creature's body was skeletal thin, and its breathing came in shallow gasps. An alien. A genuine, honest-to-God alien. And it was dying. Jake's mind raced through 1,000 questions, but his body moved on instinct. He dropped to his knees beside the small being. "Hey there, little guy," he said softly. "Or girl. I have no idea, actually." The creature made a soft chirping sound, its small hand reaching weakly toward him. "You're starving, aren't you?" Jake said, recognition dawning. He'd seen that look before, in the eyes of strays, in the faces of the desperate. Hunger was universal, apparently, even across the stars. He hurried back to his trailer and rifled through his cooler, grabbing a package of sliced turkey, some cheese, and a bottle of water. When he returned, the alien cub hadn't moved. Its eyes tracked him, but it seemed too weak to do much else. Jake sat cross-legged beside it and offered a piece of turkey. The creature sniffed it tentatively, then took it with surprising delicacy, eating slowly. Jake watched in fascination as the alien gradually consumed the turkey, then the cheese, drinking water from his cupped hands when he offered it. "There you go," Jake encouraged. "That's it. Take your time." As the creature ate, Jake noticed more details. Its hands had 4 fingers instead of 5, and its feet were digitigrade, walking on its toes like a cat. Soft, downy fur-covered parts of its body, while other areas showed smooth, scaled skin. The stripes that marked its blue flesh seemed to shimmer in the fading sunlight. After 20 minutes of slow feeding, the alien cub looked considerably better. Color had returned to its skin, and its breathing had steadied. It looked up at Jake with those impossibly large eyes and made a sound that could only be described as a purr. "You're welcome, kid," Jake said, smiling despite his bewilderment. "Now, where did you come from? Where's your—" A shadow fell across them both. Jake's head snapped up, and his heart nearly stopped. Standing 10 feet away was another alien, an adult. And if the cub had been cute, this one was absolutely breathtaking. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, with the same luminescent blue skin, but her stripes were more pronounced, creating elegant patterns across her lithe, powerful body. Long, flowing hair the color of midnight cascaded down her back. Her face combined feline grace with distinctly humanoid features, high cheekbones, full lips, and those same amber eyes, though larger and infinitely more intense. She wore minimal clothing, practical pieces that looked like they'd been designed for function rather than modesty, revealing a physique that was simultaneously athletic and undeniably feminine. Jake scrambled to his feet, holding up his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. I was just helping." The alien female's eyes moved from Jake to the cub, then back to Jake. Her expression was unreadable. Then, in a movement almost too fast to follow, she was beside the cub, running her hands over its small body, checking for injuries. She made a series of clicking sounds, and the cub responded with chirps and gestures toward Jake. The adult alien stood slowly, turning her full attention to Jake. She took a step toward him, and he fought every instinct that told him to run. Instead, he stood his ground, meeting her gaze. To his surprise, she bowed her head slightly, then placed her hand over her heart, a gesture that needed no translation. You're welcome," Jake stammered. Is the cub yours?" "Your child." The alien woman studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. She moved closer, circling him like a predator assessing prey. Jake's heart hammered, but not entirely from fear. There was something in the way she moved, something in the intensity of her gaze that made his mouth go dry. She stopped directly in front of him, so close he could smell her, an exotic scent like ozone and vanilla. When she spoke, her voice was melodic, the words incomprehensible but somehow musical. She raised one hand and gently touched his face, her palm warm against his cheek. Her expression softened, and something that might have been a smile crossed her lips. Then she stepped back and made a gesture, palm up, fingers beckoning. "Follow." "You want me to come with you?" Jake asked, knowing she couldn't understand but hoping his tone would convey his meaning. She nodded and gestured again, more insistently. The cub chirped excitedly and tugged at Jake's pant leg. Jake glanced back at his trailer, at his mundane camping trip, at his ordinary life. Then he looked at the alien mother and child, at proof that humanity wasn't alone in the universe, at beings who had somehow ended up stranded in the Nevada desert, at a grateful mother whose gaze promised answers to questions he hadn't even thought to ask. "Okay," he said, making his decision in an instant. "Let's go." The alien woman's smile widened, revealing slightly pointed teeth that somehow made her more attractive rather than frightening. She placed her hand on his shoulder, a touch that seemed to carry more meaning than simple guidance, and led him toward a depression in the landscape that he hadn't noticed before. As they walked, the cub bounded between them, clearly recovered and energized. The setting sun painted the desert in shades of orange and gold, and Jake realized his peaceful, boring weekend had just become the beginning of something extraordinary. The alien mother looked back at him over her shoulder, her eyes gleaming with what might have been amusement or appreciation, or perhaps something else entirely. Whatever happened next, whatever waited for them beyond that rise in the desert floor, Jake knew his life would never be the same. And, honestly, he couldn't wait to find out what came next.